So I'd like to officially welcome you all to the Successful VISTA Supervisor Next Steps After Orientation webinar. We are recording the session today for archives and so that others can watch it on demand later. As I mentioned, I'm Amy Kanata with Education Northwest in Portland, Oregon, and I'll be the host for today's session. We have a team supporting us today. To start, I want to welcome Andy King from the Corporation for National and Community Service. Take it away, Andy.
Thanks, Amy, and thank you all for joining us today. Looks like we have a great turnout, so that's very exciting for us. I know you have a very busy schedule, and so we really appreciate you making the time to be with us today, deepen your understanding of your role as a VISTA supervisor so that you can have a more successful VISTA project, which is obviously our goal. We offer these sessions, a week or a couple weeks after supervisors attend orientation to give you a chance to get your questions answered. Sometimes things seem really clear when you're in the workshop, and then when you get back to the office and you start to implement it or you try something on your own, the questions come up. So that's one of the primary reasons, is really just to continue that learning and to do that follow-up. We also want to help focus a little bit on a few next steps, as the title indicates, so that you can be sure that you're on track for wherever you are in your recruitment or onboarding process with VISTAs, that you know what it is you need to be doing and that you've got the resources to do that. And then the third thing is we want to help you connect and reconnect with other supervisors, because you will be the most tremendous support for each other when you come across situations or questions, or you're looking for opportunities for input. We hope you'll see each other as a resource as well.
Thank you, Andy. So you've already heard from Andy and I, and we also want to welcome our other colleague, Carly Bruder, who's also with the Corporation for National and Community Service. And today, Carly will be assisting us by monitoring the Q&A panel and helping us answer any questions that you might have. So now that you know who we are, we want to learn a little bit more about you all. And one of the things we'd like to do is put a flag on the map to see where everybody's located. So in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see an arrow tool. And go ahead and click on that arrow and then place your flag on the map to indicate where you're at in the country. Great, so we have folks on the East Coast. It looks like I'm the lone West Coast person so far. Andy and Carly in DC. Folks in the middle section of the country. Great. So you can see that we have a nice mix, I think, of folks. And this is also indicative of where the supervisor orientation sessions happened, which we had one in LA and then one in Philadelphia. So the next thing we would like you to do is in the chat panel on the right-hand side of your screen, we would like you to chat who or what, maybe it's an activity or a concept or a person that made an impression on you when you were at supervisor orientation. So who or what made an impression on you when you were at supervisor orientation? And we want you to enter those ideas and reflections in the chat panel. So I'm seeing some shout outs for our great facilitators, Jinlin Wu and Kapila Wiwagama. So we're glad that you guys enjoyed working with them. They're certainly very informative and helpful. And I'm seeing some themes about connecting with each other and learning from each other. The diversity of the programs across the country, absolutely. Great. I wish Copula or Jen could be with us today to see this, but I will definitely pass it along to them. And then Thomas is saying the other supervisors. And so connecting you all together is one of the goals of this session, to keep that going, because we know, like Andy said, that some of the best learning comes from peer learning. We're really trying to reconnect you with the folks that you met. Great. So now that we've all reconnected and reflected a little bit on supervisor orientation, let's talk about what we're going to cover in our agenda today. We've already reconnected. The next thing we're going to do is have a check-in activity to learn a little bit more about where you're currently focusing your efforts and how things are going at your site. So we look forward to hearing updates from everyone. Again, you can share those in the chat panel, or we can do verbal sharing by raising your hand, and I'll unmute your phone, and we'll give you instructions again when we get to that section. After the check-in, we're going to walk you through some key tasks that you'll be doing and help you get a few things done during the call. We'll also focus on answering any questions that you might have, and we'll be able to ask questions of CNCS staff, that would be Carly and Andy, and also walk you through some common tasks that you might have questions about. And then we'll move on to learn how we can continue to stay in touch and maintain the learning community that you have all built over the last couple of months. So that's our session for today. Let's go ahead and jump into our first activity. So this one's going to be a poll, and we want to learn a little bit more about where you're currently focusing through this poll. So let me go ahead and launch the poll. So you should be seeing the poll on your screen, and we'd like you to tell us what are your two main focus areas right now. And we realize you may be focusing on multiple areas, but what are the top two that are taking up most of your time right now for your work with the VISTA and the VISTA program? I'm seeing answers come in. So far it looks like coaching and support is getting a lot of votes. Training sub-site supervisors, and I'll publish these in just a minute. I want to give everyone a chance to answer. Member recruitment is a big one. Looks like recruitment and member support are leading the way so far. Okay, so I'll just give folks a little bit longer to get your answers in. And again, the prompt is, what is your main focus right now? Enter your top two focus areas, and these are the things that are on your plate that you're really focusing on right now to support your VISTAs or get your program up and running. Okay, 30 more seconds, and then I'm going to close the poll. All right, it looks like activity's died down, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and publish it so you can see where we're at. Okay, so you should be seeing the results in your right-hand panel. And member recruitment is a big focus. 7 out of 19 of you are focusing on member recruitment right now, followed by coaching and support, which of course we know is an ongoing activity that folks have. Actually, that coaching and support is specifically coaching and supporting VISTAs. We also have a lot of folks focusing on coaching and supporting their sub-site supervisors, and also training sub-site supervisors. So there's a definite theme here of sort of getting everybody up and running and supporting them as we go. Okay, great. So we appreciate you sharing with us sort of where you're focusing right now. So let's get a little more detailed about what's happening at your sites. So our next activity, and if you want to, you can close that poll by clicking the X in the panel next to the topic polling. I'm going to go ahead and close mine so I have a little more space here on my panel. So the next thing we want to know, and this is a chance for you to check in with us, is what's going well at your site? What's working right now at your site? And you can type your reflections into the chat panel, or if you want to leave a comment verbally, you can raise your hand and I'll unmute your phone. What is working at your site? Be sure that when you send your chat, you send it to all participants so we can see. And I'll just give folks a little bit of time to think about that. So I know many of you are focused on recruitment. How's that going? Are you on track to have recruits for your input period? Do you know the deadline for your state office? Is anybody focusing on OSOT right now? I'm seeing some answers come in. So Regina is saying there's a lot of excitement, but it's a lot of planning for 20 VISTAs across 6 cities. Absolutely. Onboarding process, Thomas, that's good to hear the onboarding process has been easy with recruits volunteering leading up to the beginning of their terms. That's great. Karen, things are going well with communication. Lisa's having luck with VISTAs meeting the assignment timelines on their VAD with small adjustments after PSO. Louise is having a good response to recruitment. This is great to hear, everyone. And Regina, planning lots of coaching tools for your sub-site supervisors. Talented team. Great. And how about on the supporting VISTAs? Anything that you want to share that's working really well around supporting your VISTAs? Any tips you want to share with the rest of the team? Let me just see if we have anyone on the phone that wants to chime in. Again, you can use the raised hand button to indicate if you would like us to unmute you so you can verbally share. Karen, thank you for that. Regular weekly supervision meetings keeps us on track. Absolutely. We know that VISTAs who meet regularly with their supervisors tend to persist throughout the year compared to those who did not have regular meetings with their supervisors. So that's wonderful, weekly meetings. And Kelly also has work plans to help keep her VISTAs focused. These are great tips. Okay, any other reflections or anything else folks want to share on what's working well at your site? And I'm not seeing any hands in the chat panel, but feel free to raise your hand if you want to verbally share. Lisa's sharing some tips about a Monday weekly conference call being a helpful tool for her, and a one-day retreat for VISTAs after PSO. Great. So you're bringing everyone together because they're dispersed across 5 counties. That's wonderful. Yeah, I think there's a theme here around communication being one of the things that's really helping folks. Wonderful. Let's move on, and you know how this goes with these sort of reflections. Let's reflect a little bit on what's not working at your sites, or maybe not working as well as you had hoped. So again, same process, enter your ideas into the chat panel, or you can raise your hand. What's not working at your site? And I didn't really provide a caveat that this is sort of a what happens in this webinar stays in this webinar, but we do hope that folks will share things that maybe are not working at their sites with the intention that that could help others, and also possibly generate some ideas on how we can support you better. Ellie says, finding balance between my other job responsibilities. Absolutely. I think that's a struggle that all supervisors have. Good question, Regina. How people are handling hiring a VISTA now, but knowing that their service won't start until summer. Hiring your VISTA now, but knowing their service won't start till summer. So, Regina, maybe you could give us a little more insight into that. Does that have to do with trying to keep that VISTA interested between now and summer? Is that what you're, okay. Lisa's saying accountability has been a concern with 2 of the 5 VISTAs she has. And she's added a weekly activity reporting requirement to better monitor. That's helpful for other people to see your ideas there. Karen was wishing she could have had training earlier. Regina, keeping them interesting and potentially accepting other offers. Good point. For that recruitment process, you want to get your folks recruited, but there's always a little bit of time, or sometimes there's time in between when they get chosen and when they actually start. Thomas says, explaining the difference between direct and indirect service administration capacity building functions to other members of our organization. Yeah, the capacity building piece is so important that we get that across to not only our VISTAs, but also to the other people who they serve alongside. Social media use has been an issue. And let's see, anybody have comments they want to make on the phone? You can go ahead and raise your hand. I'm not seeing any hands at this point. Any other reflections on what's not working at your sites that you want to share? The challenge of being a sub-site supervisor who did not go to orientation but is expected to know what you're doing. Well, that's a good point. We're actually offering next week a session, a webinar for sub-site supervisors to outline all the different tasks and responsibilities for sub-site supervisors. So I hope that Patty, I think I'm saying it right, Patty can join us for that. Okay, so related to these reflections, let's go ahead and put out there, are there specific questions that you have that you want to ask related to some of your challenges, or maybe even related to some of the successes you're having? Do you have questions for Andy and Carly from CNCS? This is really your chance to get any questions that you might have answered. Of course, we'll do the best we can. We don't have all the answers. But what questions do you have for the CNCS staff? And there are no stupid questions, so anything is fair game. You can use the Q&A panel, which is the little question mark icon at the top right of your screen to post your questions, or you can post them into the chat panel. What questions do you have for the CNCS staff? You can also raise your hand and I can unmute you as well.
This is Carly, and I see that we have a question in the chat, which is what are some of the things you look for in the narrative for the quarterly reports, which is a great question. The narrative section is broken out into a few different sections, and we look for you to be thorough in answering all of them. We'd like to know what successes you've had, what challenges you've had, how your recruitment process is going, any lessons learned that have come up along the way, maybe things you weren't anticipating but that you learned, or new opportunities, any highlights of major projects or events that your VISTAs have done or contributed to, or really just the overall state of your VISTA project. There's really the only wrong answer is to leave those blank. Some folks put not applicable, and that is absolutely not true. All of the narrative sections of the report are applicable to all of our grantees.
Thank you, Carly. Other questions that people might have, it could be anything. It could be about your recruitment process. It could be about reporting, how you support your members. This is really your chance to ask questions, and hopefully we can answer them for you.
And while we're waiting for other questions to come, I noticed earlier during the check-in, someone said, oh, what can we do when we're selecting our VISTA members now, but they won't start until the summer? And that is a really important thing to pay attention to. All too often, unfortunately, we have some VISTA sponsors who make their selection. They'll send a standard email that says, hey, you know, you're in and you're going to start on X date. And then they don't communicate with them again and expect that applicant is not going to go away. It's not going to be getting other offers or getting tempted, or, you know, or having life happen. So a few things that you can do to make sure that folks don't drift away is to keep in regular communication with them, whether it's by email or phone call. It doesn't have to be too long or involved, and it doesn't even have to be that personal. If you've got 20 VISTAs around the country, or VISTA applicants who you selected, you could, for instance, one week say, hey, if you haven't really looked at our website, you know, here's the link, and I want to point you to this recent blog post that we put up about what our program is doing, so that they can learn more about you and your organization. Maybe there's an article that relates to the kind of work they would be doing around homelessness or hunger elimination or financial literacy. So, you know, something to keep them interested, something that's relevant to what they would be doing as a VISTA, and something to hopefully help them get excited about what they could be doing. So those are a few ideas, but that communication is really key. And you want to keep that door open. So, you know, make sure there's a really strong invitation for them to reach out to you if anything changes, or if they've got questions or concerns, or if there's anything that's not quite clear about the process, because we don't want them feeling like they're hanging out there in the dark and they're not quite sure what comes next. So the more open those communication channels can be in both directions, the better. And then, of course, you also want to have a backup plan. So hopefully you'll get lots of great applications for your VISTA positions. you'll have to make a selection, and then you'll have some folks who were close, but you just didn't have enough space for them. And so you might want to think about how you could communicate to those who aren't selected immediately to let them know that they're right at the top of your list, and you really hope that they would be willing, you know, or could maybe be available if something happened and a space opens up, that you would get right back in touch with them, so that, you know, if somebody does drop out and attrition does happen, that you've got somebody in the wings that you can tap right away, and you won't miss out on that placement cycle. Because if you're not aware, if you're slated to place your VISTA members at a particular PSO and somebody drops out, you're going to have to wait until the next PSO, pre-service orientation, for your state or your project. And that could be a month later, it could be 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 months later, depending on the time of year. So having a backup is a great plan. Carly, I don't know if you have anything you would add to that.
I don't have anything that I would add to that, Andy, but I do see that we have some more questions in the chat that I can move on to.
Great.
And the first of those questions is, what advice do you have to sites that have had the VISTA program for 3 years and do not want to take a break? The state office is saying that they have to take a break and then reapply at a later date. Traditionally, VISTA projects are focused on a 3-year cycle with a renewal application every year. If you feel that you're in your 3rd year and you would like to continue your project for a 4th year, excuse me, you would need to demonstrate a compelling need to your state office as to why you need to continue to have the VISTA resources, your proven success with the past 3 years of hosting VISTAs, and your innovation for what you're going to be doing in the next year with the VISTAs. So looking that you have a proven track record of success and that you're looking to do something a little new and different, and you're not just doing the same thing over and over again for a longer amount of time. Another great way is, if you're not already cost sharing, if you can offer to cost share, or if you are cost sharing, if you can increase the amount of your cost share, that would also demonstrate institutional support towards the VISTA project, and could potentially enable the state office to grant you an additional year of funding. State offices work really hard to manage the allocations of funds that are available in their state, and they want to make sure that as many organizations in the state have access to the resource as possible. So you would just need to talk to your state office about what the landscape looks like for the coming year as to how many resources are available in your state. The next question is it unusual to not have received any reporting instructions? And our VISTA started on Monday. It's a little unusual, but not entirely unusual. Reporting is done in the first year of the grant on a quarterly basis, and then it can move into a biannual basis. If you have not received any instructions at all regarding reporting, follow up with your state office. They work with you to set the reporting deadlines, and they can let you know what those deadlines are. Your reports are also accessible through your eGrants portal. In the lower right-hand corner of your screen when you log in, you should see something that says reporting, and you can click on there to link and access to the reports. But your state office can also provide you further information about that. And then the last question that I see is, when will I be notified if I'm getting a continuation grant? My MA is up in June. I haven't received any info about the process and have no idea how it works. I haven't submitted any continuation request or grant. I've been told I'll be notified if I will have a continuation. When you currently have a grant, your state office invites you to apply for a continuation, and they usually send you that notice about 120 days, so 4 months in advance. So if your grant is up at the end of June, you're right about in that time frame. some state offices, the timeline is not as long. So you're definitely well within the time frame if your grant is up in June. And your state office will send you those instructions about how to initiate a continuation application and the deadline for that application as well.
Thank you so much, Carly and Andy. Any more questions before we move on? Let me check to see if anyone has raised their hand. Okay, last call for any additional questions before we move on. Okay, so seeing that we don't have any additional questions, I'm going to move on to our next section, which is about getting things done. And I'm going to pass the ball over to Andy, so to speak, and he's going to help walk us through some common activities and websites that you'll need to be familiar with in order to successfully administer your VISTA project. So Andy's going to be our presenter, and I'm going to drive the technology on my end. It's a little bit experimental, so wish me luck. And take it away, Andy.
Great, thanks. So even if you didn't have a specific question, we want to walk you through some of the tasks that supervisors commonly need to perform, whether it's sooner or later, depending on where you are in your grant cycle. But eventually, you're likely going to need to do all of these things. So we want to point them out so that you'll have a clear idea of what you need to do and how to get started with it. And so the first task we're going to take a look at involves recruiting. And I know you spent some time at the supervisor orientation looking at recruiting and thinking about messaging and all of that. But we also want to give you a chance to kind of take a look at the competitive landscape out there. So your first task, it's a little activity, is we want you to review the recruitment listings that are currently posted on MyAmericorps in your city or state. And as you look at those, we want to have you chat about what you see that stands out for you in those listings. So Amy is going to do the technological wizardry. So here she's gone to the myamericorps.gov website, and anybody can do this. So people who are interested in serving as an AmeriCorps member will go to this page. There's a link on the preceding page. It says View Listings. You don't have to have an account or log in or anything. And so Amy's already opened up the advanced listing search page, and so each of you can manipulate this window independently. So what I would like you to do is scroll down a little, and I'm doing that on my end. I don't know if that's scrolling for you as well, but you'll see there are a few search boxes. Program type, if you choose from the drop-down, you're going to want to pick AmeriCorps VISTA. Select your state, and then click the search button, which is just below that. So that you can do a quick search here and just see what's up in your state. If you're really interested, you can go down to the advanced search section, and you can look by metropolitan area to narrow it down if you really want to see who's in your neighborhood and what the competition is there. So I'll give you a couple minutes to get started doing your search. And then a few things I want you to take a look at when you get there. You'll see when the listings come up, you'll see the title that sponsor has given to the VISTA position. Some of them are more creative than others, and so if you think about from the shopper's point of view, if you were considering a VISTA position and you were looking among to select among these, which ones stand out for you? Which one would catch your eye? Which ones sound appealing? And then, of course, in addition to the title, you'll also see that brief little one-line description. And so that is something really useful to look at. And again, see what stands out for you, see which ones you think in one or two lines conveys what this position is about. And then when you've had a chance to do that, if you would, please use the chat and just call out anything that jumps out at you, anything you saw that you think was a good idea, something that was interesting, eye-catching, something you want to borrow or adopt. All right, well, I just did a quick search on Washington, D.C., and so I've noticed a couple things that I'll share, but I see some, oh, Karen says the wording of some listings conveyed a positive energy, which is great, yeah, and so, you know, if I were looking, I would be attracted to ones that have a more positive feel to them, because it would seem like they're an energetic, forward-moving organization. I would want to be a part of that. There's one here in Washington, D.C. It's called the FIRST VISTA program. FIRST, F-I-R-S-T, is an acronym. FIRST is the hardest fun you'll ever have. So, you know, right there, it tells me a couple things. It's serious work. You know, it's hard. You know, it's going to be a challenge, and I like a challenge, but it's also fun. So I think that blend of challenge and reward is appealing to a lot of people. Then it goes on to say, help move kids up and out of poverty by engaging them in an exciting mentor-based robotics program that inspires innovation. Kate says, I found one that started, "We want you" in all caps. That caught my eye. So there's another example of something that's eye-catching. You definitely want to be welcoming. You want to be clear that you are open and welcoming to your applicants. But of course, if everybody says, "We want you," then you have to find another way to stand out. So the piece that comes after that eye-catcher has to be a little bit unique and also compelling. Any others that stood out for you? Do you see any commonality in the language that's used in the two-line teaser that appears there in the search listing? And my last question will be, how, if you already have postings up there, how do your announcements compare to the ones you're seeing here in your area? So that would be, you know, that would obviously be the goal here of this little activity, is to get a sense of what the competition is out there, because you are competing for VISTA applicants, and you want to make sure that your announcement is stacking up well against the others, because no matter how great your program is, if your announcement doesn't reflect that, then the applicants will never have a chance to find out just how awesome you are. All right, well then let's go ahead and move on to our next activity, helping you get things done. And this one relates to reporting, and we had a question earlier about reporting. So this one ties right into it. So what we'd like you to do is find out the due date for your project progress report in eGrants. It's what we call the PPR. We have an acronym for so many things here. So that's the first thing that we're going to want to have you do. Amy has pasted the instructions in the chat, but basically what you're going to do is you're going to log into your eGrants account, and hopefully you know what your eGrants login and password is. And if not, you can use the eGrants help for that. Fortunately, I don't have your login or password. And once you're logged in, you're going to click on the Progress Report button, which will be in the lower right-hand corner. So Carly had mentioned that. That'll show up once you actually log in. So you've got the login screen there where you can put your username and password. If you don't have your password, you can get help with that first link just below the login window. And hopefully you're logged in by now. And if you go down to the bottom right corner, you might have to scroll down depending on your screen size to see that. And you'll see a button or a link for a progress report in the lower right corner. And if you click on that, then in the next window you'll see a listing that will show the current grant for your project. And if you click on that, you should be able to see your next report due date. Now, if you find that you don't have one listed there, if it's just blank, that's because your state office uploads the report and the due date and all of that information. And so if you're early on in the cycle, it may not be uploaded yet. So you can always check with your state office to get your due date if it doesn't appear there yet. Carly, do you have any other suggestions or advice that you would add here?
No, I think you covered it all, Andy.
Okay, great. All right, so so hopefully you've been able to log in. I haven't seen anybody in the chat saying they had issues that weren't covered. Regardless, we're going to move on. We have another piece of this activity, and that is we want you to download the outline for the project progress report, and you can do that from the VISTA campus. And the reason for doing this is there's information that you're going to need to collect first before you enter it in to eGrants. So this template or this outline helps you understand what all the categories are, so you know what the questions are you need to answer, what data you need to collect, so that you'll have that all assembled. So when you go into eGrants, it's just a matter of copying and pasting into the eGrants system. So for this part of the activity, you need to log into the VISTA campus. So thank you, Amy, for bringing up the VISTA campus. And if you're not very familiar with that, the URL is vistacampus.gov. And from the main screen, you'll see in the lower right quadrant of that circle in the middle is the supervisors area. If you click there, you will be asked to log in, and hopefully you all have a VISTA campus username and password that you would have created yourself. If you don't, for this activity, you can enter as a guest, but next time we come back to the campus, we're going to do something that requires you to be logged in as a supervisor. So, so you're going to want to be able to do that.
And for some reason, Andy, we had a little issue with our session window, so I'm going to share the campus again in case. I'm not sure why, but it seemed to close out a couple of our pieces.
Great, thank you for that.
Let's try
again. While that's coming up, I will talk you through a little bit about how to go find this progress report template. So you'll click on the supervisors quadrant. You will log in. And then you'll go to Life as a Supervisor. And that brings up the what we call the supervisor desktop. And that outlines most of the roles of a VISTA supervisor And in this section on roles and responsibilities is a block for reporting and evaluation. So, so again, when you get into the supervisor's area, it's life as a supervisor, and then roles and responsibility, which is right in the middle of that desktop. And then you want to pick reporting and evaluation. And in here, in the reporting and evaluation section, are lots of instructions and tips and guidance on how to complete the various required reports. And you need to scroll down a little bit to get to the blank oh, sorry, here it is. How to complete a VISTA PPR and e-grants. There's a PDF set of instructions. And I've noticed when I'm doing it through the WebEx interface, I'm asked to log in again. So I don't know if you will encounter that as well.
And Andy, this is Amy. I just want to chime in here and let folks know that we will post all the instructions and URLs for these activities along with the recording of the session. So if for some reason this isn't working for you on your end, we'll be sure to include the instructions so you can go back to these activities later on.
Great. Thanks, Amy. And so there really are the two resources there. One is how to complete the VISTA PPR, the project progress report, and then right below it is a blank, as a Word document, it's a blank template. So it has all the questions and things you would need to fill in, and so you can do that quarter by quarter, save your answers there. Then when it's time to submit, you can just copy and paste into eGrants. So that's it. You can actually, once you open the Word document or even the instructions, you can save those to your desktop or to your own local drive so that you'll have them and you won't have to navigate back here each time. So we wanted to give you a chance to take a look at both of those and to sort of get them queued up so that when report time comes, you'll have it there right on your own hard drive, and it'll be easier to find. Okay, so we've got one more activity that we'd like you to engage in. This one is related to your site success. So first off, we want you to, back on the VISTA campus, we want you to find the Supervisor's Manual. And hopefully that'll be an easy thing to do. So if you're still logged in, and I see that I still am, you can just go to the main Supervisors page. And to do that, if you're on the Reporting and Evaluation page, in the upper left corner, just below where it says VISTA Campus, you see that compass? That compass is the icon for the VISTA Supervisors area. If you click that, it takes you back to the landing page for supervisors, and there, I'm not going to tell you exactly where, but there you will find the Supervisor Manual. A hint, it's right below the calendar. So if you click there, you'll see the table of contents for the manual, and want you to just take a look and note the sections that are outlined here. So it's things about your role as a supervisor, recruiting VISTAs, what you need to do to plan for your VISTA's arrival, and then their training and professional development while they're serving there, and on and on. So you see the topics. And as you're looking at those and thinking about them, is there one that you might want to read first? If so, you can bookmark this, the Supervisor Manual in your browser, so it'll be easier to come back and take a look at. All right, so that was the first thing. The second thing related to promoting site success is to go back to a different area here on the VISTA campus. So if you click on the little compass again at the top of your screen, we're going to go to a section of the campus on working with subsites. So again, it's in Life as a Supervisor. And then it's again in Roles and Responsibilities where we were before. And you have to scroll down a little, and it's the bottom right section is working with subsites. And within there, you will find the sponsor and subsite task list. So whether you're a single site project or multiple subsite, what we would like you to do, it's called the VISTA Sponsor and Subsite Supervisor Major Tasks at a Glance. What we'd like you to do is open that or save it to your hard drive so that you'll have this easily available to you. So if you would, please open that up and take a look at the things on the list, because whether you're a single site or a multiple site project, these are tasks that apply to, or most of these tasks apply to your work there at your VISTA site. So I'm having trouble getting this to open. It's downloading. Okay. So is there something on the list that you still need to do or something that you want to do first? If there is, then mention that in the chat. So go ahead and use the chat feature to identify a task that you might want to do sooner rather than later in order to keep things on track.
So Andy, this is Amy on the technology side, and we are having issues with the browser window closing. So if that did close for folks, I opened another one. Sorry about that. There seems to be some gremlins in the WebEx system that that are testing us. So we appreciate So we appreciate your patience with this process.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. It was so smooth when we were testing it out and running through it last week, so it never fails. Well, anyway, if you weren't able to do it through the WebEx browser, and on my end it looks like that window just closed again, no worries. You'll go to vistacampus.gov, go to the Supervisor section, Roles and Responsibilities, and then you'll see Working with Subsites. And scrolling down a bit, you'll see this list for supervisors, the task list. It's a great little guide for some things that you'll want to do as a relatively new supervisor. Okay, so just a couple things that I want to touch on before we close. So we can move on past this, and then Amy, I'm going to actually turn it back to you to see if we have any questions before we wrap up.
Great, thank you, Andy, and thank you everyone for trying out some different ways to use WebEx with us, and we hope that you got a few things done, or at least are more familiar with some of the websites that you'll be visiting most often in your role as a supervisor. So let's go ahead and pause for questions at this point. Any questions that folks have that you want to ask about the activities we did, or really anything, go ahead and post those into the chat panel, or you can raise your hand. Okay, so I know a lot of folks are, I think, winding down, so I'm going to go ahead and just review the last couple of things before we end, and feel free to post questions in the chat and we'll monitor those and get to them. So we had another activity for today, and I think that maybe we'll just talk about it instead of walk everyone through it. I think at this point you're very familiar with the campus. But we do want to encourage you all to continue your conversation as sort of this great cohort of people. Many of you have met in person. And so you can do that on the Supervisor Cafe forum of the VISTA campus. Keep in mind that if you want to be notified when people post messages, you'll need to manually subscribe to notifications. And you can do that by going to the VISTA Cafe page under Connect with Supervisors, and in the right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a little button that says Subscribe to Notifications. And I personally find that valuable because then anytime someone posts in the forum, I get an email. And so far, it's minimal. It's not a big strain on my inbox or anything like that. But I'm getting messages, you know, a couple a month. We'd love to see more, but it is nice to have those right in my inbox. The other thing I wanted to share with you is I did put together a discussion thread called Winter 2014 Supervisor Cohort. So that's a place where you guys can connect with each other. It is open to any supervisor that's on the forum, but we did start a discussion thread, so if you want to connect with each other in that space, you can. And of course, you can also start your own topics, jump on different discussions that have already started. We just encourage you to use that space and that forum as a place to interact with each other, especially since we know that sharing, you know, with your colleagues can be one of the most valuable ways that you learn this role as a VISTA supervisor. So we encourage you to stay in touch.
And Amy, if I can just, if I can interject, this is the one area of the campus where you need to be logged in, and your campus account needs to indicate that you are a VISTA supervisor, because if you're not, you won't be able to see the supervisor discussion forum.
Yes, thank you, Andy. And it's also, this particular forum is not open to members. It's only open to supervisors. So it is really a space for all of you. Okay, just a couple announcements, and then we'll let you go so you can get back to your probably giant to-do list. As I mentioned, we have other webinars. The next one is next week, and it's specifically for sub-site supervisors. So we encourage you to go to the supervisor webinar page and sign up and join us next week. We will have a revised VISTA campus soon, so we'll let everyone know when that happens. We're thinking it's going to be in later this spring, so keep an eye out for a new look for the VISTA campus. And then also I just want to encourage everyone to connect with your state office for ongoing support. So they're really your best first line for questions and other support that you might need as you're running your project. So don't forget to connect early and often with your state office. And I don't see any other questions, so we're going to go ahead and close the session. Please complete the evaluations. You'll see a screen pop up when you close WebEx, and we appreciate hearing your feedback and what you thought of the webinar today, especially since this one was a little bit experimental, so do leave us some feedback. And then you can always contact us if you have additional questions at vistawebinars@cns.gov. So that's the end of the formal portion of the session. Is there anything else, Andy or Carly, that you'd like to add before we close?
I just want to, again, thank all of you for stepping up to manage a VISTA project and to supervise your VISTAs. We hope you'll agree that VISTAs are one of the most valuable resources that any organization could receive. And we hope you'll turn to us whenever you have questions or challenges, and we'll do our best to support you in that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.